Here's the most popular operating car Lionel ever made. But like most cars made 40 years ago, this one isn't quite working right. For this project, we're going to take apart the 3472 operating milk car, rebuild it, clean it up, and make it work just like new. The milk car comes apart much differently than all the other post-war cars. This one has doors that snap in on both sides. Then it has these small wire braces that hold the car body to the frame. The first thing we'll do is we'll very gently pop the snaps on these doors and get the door frames off first. They unsnap on the bottom and then they slide out from the top like that. Now let's get the other side. We'll remove it the same way and then pull it down there so that it's loose. We do that first because the next step will be to remove these brackets that hold the body to the frame. Sometimes they're a little stubborn. You have to get underneath and pry them up. There we go. There's the first one. There's the second one. Now we can slide the plastic body off of the frame, being careful not to hook that little metal bracket there. That exposes the interior of the car. What this car needs is a good cleaning. There's a corrosion all over this metal. We've got wires with broken insulation, so we need to rewire it. And most importantly, as I show you on this side of the car, there's a solenoid right here, and that's the heart of the whole operation. This spring on the end of the solenoid needs to, once it's actuated and pushes the man out, it needs to pop back with a good sharp punch so that it actuates that trap and drops into the can in place. Normally, what we would do is we would move this piece of insulation up and unsolder the wire, but since this wire is in such poor shape, we're just going to cut them off and replace them later, so let's get that done now. Same goes for the other side, over here. You need to reach in and get that wire snipped, there we go, and get him out. And the next thing we see is two screw heads. There's one here and one here. So we're going to remove those two screws like this. Now be careful when you lift this off because the solenoid is part of that cover mechanism. Remove the piston and remove the spring. And we're going to stretch that spring a little bit in a minute, but we'll set that aside for now because that's something I want to show. It's a fairly delicate operation. Now, let's take a look. Here's the chute that the milk cans roll down. And you can see that that chute is corroded, fairly messy. The milk cans themselves need to be cleaned up. They're corroded too. Well, the next thing we're going to do is remove the mechanism from the frame of the car. You go to the underside, there's one screw right here. Loosen that screw. And then on the end right here, you see that tab? Well, all we're going to do is just lift this out like that. Now we need to get the mechanism apart. And to do that, there's a horseshoe clip on this end that we need to spread. There we go. And then lift this, the mechanism with the man on it, get him out. And then this arm that traps the milk cans or lets them down, we need to go to the underside. There's a nice access hole to put the screwdriver through and remove that screw on the bottom. Everything else is riveted in place. We can clean the car up and we can clean this platform without removing any further mechanism. Let's get our wire wheel and clean out this barrel trough a little bit here. And just in general, clean up all of the metal moving mechanisms. There. That looks like that's got the mechanism clean Everything is moving freely as it should. The next thing we're going to do is clean the plunger up on the solenoid. Remember that it's got to slide very smoothly in here. So we'll buff the little bit of corrosion that it has on it. There, it's got it nice and smooth so that now when it slides in and out of the solenoid, now it works very smoothly. Well, we've got all the mechanism polished, but we need to polish the cans too so that they'll roll freely down the chute. Just buff them very, very lightly. They won't need much. But the important thing is to get all the corrosion off of the outer edges. That's how the can should look. Nice smooth surfaces so it can roll down that chute without jamming. You can see the difference between one we've done and one we still need to do here. To begin the reassembly, we're going to put this little trap lever back onto the casting. And when you do it, it has to fit right through there. So this slot right here goes right in between that metal right there. Then if you notice, this sits here because that's a shoulder, and then we'll tighten the screw onto that shoulder like that. And we'll go through the access port and tighten the screw in. Check to be sure that the lever is on the shoulder, and when you tighten the screw down, that the lever still moves freely. Well, the next thing we have to do is to put our milkman back on his bracket, like that. Then we need to lift this bracket, making sure that this edge fits underneath here, and that that tip right there passes through this L-shaped slot. Let's see if we can do this. All right. Then we'll move this back and find the tip through the L-shaped slot. There. Then we'll turn it around. And we need to do two things here. We need to put the washer back on the post first, and then we'll position the arm over the post. There. And the last thing we need to do is to install this horseshoe clip back on to keep the whole thing together. And then once that's done, we want to squeeze the tabs together just a little bit. There we go. There. Now the surface, now everything's back together and it's working smoothly. The last thing we need to do is take a look at this return spring. We're going to stretch it a little bit so it will have a sharper return than it did before. That'll apply much more pressure on that plunger to kick back out and therefore bring our milkman in and load up another can. Yeah, that looks pretty good. We've already installed new wiring on the solenoid, and we've put sleeves of shrink wrap on the wiring. Now we're going to position it onto the mechanism like this. There we go. And we're going to install one screw in the back just to hold it in position. Tighten that screw down, but not real tight. When you get it down tight, back it up about 2 turns to give us maneuvering room to put the plunger and spring assembly back into the solenoid. And you do that by compressing the spring like this. Slide it into the solenoid, and then carefully locate the bottom pin into the hole in the bracket like that. Now we'll put the second screw in here. We can tighten it down. And now we can snug both of them up. There. And the last thing we need to do is add a little bit of lubricant to the sliding surfaces. Let's see how she works. Oh, that's much smoother. That's the way it ought to work. Now we've added new wires to both pickup shoes and threaded them up through the holes. So what we want to do now is install the assembly onto the base, First, we'll make sure that the tab gets started in the slot, like that. And then we have to pause and install this wire through the hole and bring him out this way, like that. Then we rotate the car over and install the one mounting screw to hold the mechanism on. There. Now he's remounted back onto the frame. Okay, we've soldered the new wires on and slipped our heat shrink tube down. Let's shrink it in place. There. Now we should be electrically and mechanically perfect. We've cleaned a little bit on the body. You can see it's in much better shape than it was before. So let's slide that over, being careful to get everything fitted in place. Well, that went well. Everything looks fine. Now we'll install a retaining clip, getting this pin in through a hole in the frame and the hole in the body. There we are. There it is right there, see? And press it down, lock it in place, and do the same for the other side. Then you take the double door set, and there's a single clip at the top and a double clip at the bottom, and you locate this one just under the lip of the plastic right here. Like that. And then snap the bottom ones into place. And do the same thing on the other side. Get the single clip at the top in and snap the bottom ones in place. There. Now we're ready to take the car in on the layout and try it out. Well, it looks like that milk car is working as good as it ever did.